Alright, I'm going to do another rock to point video. This time with something a little bit easier. I've got already some flakes off of this, and I popped the corner off. I can do the thing here. So it looks like it's good material, right? So I won't be, hopefully it won't be fussing with bad material on this video. We'll see. And this is not that big either. This is a lot of what I have. I have these smaller pieces. It turns out that the smaller pieces are high quality in many cases. So that's 3.5 inches long. We'll see what the finished point looks like. Oh, how much I can preserve out of this. Now it's not perfect. It does have some issues in this piece, but from what I can see so far, it's pretty good. All right. Got a couple friends here watching. So if you hear noises in the background, like chuckling or maybe even a random bodily function, then don't freak out. Okay? All right. Someone might be saying, what is freak out? What is that? That's an old term for being surprised. Okay? Don't be surprised. Don't think that there's something funny going on. Like napping in the garage with a bunch of spirits or something. All right. So yeah, so far so good. I'm starting off with indirect percussion, which is a little bit unusual, but my wrist hurts. So let's see. I could be using a smaller bopper for you wise guys that already thought of that. Just use a smaller bopper, man. You don't have to use a big old. Yeah, okay. I will use it. I was using it earlier, so don't think you had the first idea. All right. Well, that just showered me with flakes up into my face. Yeah, I'm having to swing it because it doesn't generate that much energy, the smaller bopper.
You coming? Yeah. Yeah, we just, yes.
So I'm swinging this so I can get enough speed to knock off these good flakes. But I have to be careful with my accuracy because I don't want to scoop it out like that. The scoop out also has to do with the edge. It wasn't that great as far as the angle on it. If it's too steep on the side, when I hit it, it scoops it out too much. But if it's got a good angle, then the flake will travel a little bit better. Instead of going almost straight in, it'll go that way. Yeah. Yeah, this doesn't bother my wrist very much, so I'll continue until my accuracy starts to suffer. Like right there, I don't know what I was going to do. What was I trying to do? Trying to be smart, take off that cortex, but I took off too much. Yeah, this takes off a lot of material too fast. Okay. There's a crystal pocket in the middle. Surprise, surprise. Come on. This is a 5/8 aluminum rod. It works pretty good. Oh, there's 2 crystal pockets there. I was talking about scooping it out earlier. I'm using the scoop outs to my advantage to get rid of some of that mass on the edge. Oops. I was just going to talk about overshots, and guess what happened? Overshot. If I hit too hard, you know, I get an overshot. I mean, I had to hit hard for the scoop out, but if I hit too hard, I get an overshot. Just like that. So I don't think those crystal pockets go all the way through, which is good. We'll see. We'll see. I think I preserved most of the length, but not the width. Yeah, it's 3 1/4. It was 3 1/2, I think. Or I don't know. I don't remember. Let's see if I can do this without overshooting again. It's dicey to hit from the base, but it can thin down a piece very quickly. Still got a bunch of quartzite in there. So there's no real easy way to tell if it goes through all the way. Sometimes you can tell by the translucency, but I don't know. It doesn't look like it's going that deep. But even a little bit of weakness when I'm in the thinning stage can make it break right in half. It's right in the middle, right where it shouldn't be. Yeah, right in the middle. Helps it to break in half. If it wants to break in half, that crystal pocket will help it to do that. But it's not very snappish, as far as I can tell, so that's good. I think I'm getting almost to the bottom of it. Okay. Removing some of the mass off the base portion, or the bottom portion of the workpiece, just to reduce the amount of stress in the middle. If there's a lot of mass on the ends, it puts a lot of stress in the middle when you're hitting the sides with the percussion instrument or percussion tool. Those of you who have been watching the channel for a while, you already know that. I always try to thin down the ends first, if I can remember. But I try to make that a habit, so I don't need to remember. It just comes naturally, supposedly. Yeah. That's the way it's supposed to work. But, you know, once in a while, it doesn't quite work that way, and I forget. Should I do another beveled point and leave it thick? I can, I suppose. We'll see. If I mess up and thin an area down too much, then it won't be able to remain thick. Because I had to even it out. I have to make it symmetrical for the video. Everyone wants to know how to make it symmetrical. I've said it before, a lot of the artifacts are not symmetrical, but if you don't make it symmetrical, people look at it and they go, "You made that? Really? It's not symmetrical, dude." Now thinking that, they won't say that. They'll just say something like, "I guess it's hard stone to nap, huh?" You know, it's hard to get the symmetry on that particular type of stone, right? And you just go, yeah, that's it. That's what it is. It's not like the real ones were made that way or anything. Anyways, I still see a deep pocket in there. Okay. See, that might also cause it to be really, really thin. That way, and I won't be able to put in some good beveling. And that also causes it to be weak right there. It will snap in half if I don't get under that. It might look cool as part of the arrowhead, but it weakens it. So you can try to keep that in there, but in the process of finishing it out, the chances are it'll snap in half. It's right there, dead center in the middle. Just my luck. Yeah. It's possible I could leave some of that in. That might be kind of cool. But we'll see. I am going to try to get under it. If there's a little bit left on the surface, it's not bad. As long as there's not a step fracture right there. Crystal pockets are notorious for being difficult to nap through, so you end up with a step fracture right there. Luckily, it's good material, so I can strategize a little bit and be reasonably certain that my strategy will work when it's good quality stone. What's the strategy? Just to whittle it down easily. Don't get too aggressive with it because it can snap at any time. And maybe leave some in there just in case. Just in case I think it's getting too thin. I don't have to get it totally out. I don't know if that made sense. If it's starting to get too thin in my attempt to remove it, I may say, well, it's not worth getting it that thin and risking breaking it because of the thinness. Yeah, it's hard enough to keep it from breaking when it does not have a defect. When it gets thin. But when it's thinned with a defect, that's even harder. Harder in terms of luck. It's not harder in terms of the napping of difficulty level. it's harder to keep it in one piece. I wish there was a different way to explain it. It's a game of chance to avoid the breakage. Yeah, but luckily this is knapping really easily, so it's not that bad. It's not that bad. It's easier to predict when it's nice material. Okay. I got to be careful when I'm hitting down here. It can still break right across there. Some of you that are new might ask, what is this? This is a file that it's called a needle file, but it has diamond particles on it, so it can file down stone and other hard materials. You can buy the needle file set at Harbor Freight or similar places. I suppose I could leave that in. It's very shallow now. It doesn't go all the way through, although you can see that it does present a slight issue. See, when it's got translucency like that, it's weaker. This material where the crystal pocket is very crumbly. It's weak, and if it goes in far enough, it can weaken it a lot. You can weaken the center of this point. All right, so the majority of the thinning work is done. Just a few more spots I can thin down. Doesn't need to be much thinner than this. I want to get that stuff extra out from the other side. I might be able to clean it up a little bit more. Yeah. Good. Just very little bit of it left. Leave it in. Yeah. I'll leave it in that much. Did I get it? Yes. Okay. So yeah, that's as thin as I'm going to go in the middle. I'm not going to touch it. It's still got some quartzite on there. A little bit of sparkly. Yeah. Okay. I'm not too worried about it breaking in half. If there was still a hole in there, yeah, I would be worried, but there's no hole in there. It's just almost gone. Okay. As it gets more narrow, I can get those little step fractures out. The hardest part of the flake to control, if you don't already know, is the termination. And those are right at the termination, of course. So just keep that in mind when you're a newbie. The hardest part of the flake to control is the termination. So if you're getting a lot of termination errors, don't worry, that everybody gets those. It's very difficult to predict those. A lot of times I'm sitting here trying to pick them out with my fingernail. Yeah, the easiest part of the flake to predict is the middle portion. Right after the beginning and just before the end. The middle portion is the easiest portion to predict. So if you have an obstacle somewhere, the best place to have the obstacle is in the middle of the flake, not at the beginning or the end. So keep that in mind too if you're a newbie. A lot of newbies, they want to hit the obstacle with the very end of the flake, and that's the most difficult way to get rid of the obstacle. All right, the obstacle should be somewhere in the middle portion of the flake that you're planning. Don't plan on removing an obstacle as a general rule with the termination of the flake. That goes for the fog nappers too. The flake over grind in the middle, you have a lot of times you have some of the original surface still there, and you're trying to hit that and eliminate that original surface with the end of your flake. That's where you run into problems, because that's the hardest part to predict, is the ending of the flake. So if you can do their first pass, I was doing some flake over grind a little bit today. I found that if you do the first pass and get way past the center line with the first pass, you don't have to worry about that in the middle. You know, if you fall short on your first pass, it's going to be difficult to get the flakes to meet up in the middle. So when you do your first pass, or when I was doing my first pass on the first side, I made that mistake of shooting them too short. And then when I did the other side, I made sure that my first pass went past center line, so I wouldn't have to try to fix it with the ending of the flake on the other side. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. You flake over grind guys are going, yeah, just stay in your lane, man. Just do the percussion. They don't want to hear that stuff. We already know. I know you know. And you know that I know you know. But some of those guys are new. They don't know. Okay. So some of you might ask, does that mean you're going to do some flake over grind videos? Like tomorrow? You're going to do like 4 slabs tomorrow? No, I'm not going to do 4 slabs tomorrow. Although I could. There's a lot of slabs here in my friend's garage. It's a garage full of slabs. Yeah. And we got cheater machines too. We can do all kinds of stuff. We can cut stone. We can grind off step fractures. Oh yes. How do you grind off a step fracture? I might show you that just in a separate video all by itself. I used to do it on a bench grinder. Sit there. I used to have a bench grinder sit next to me during a certain period of time in the beginning. So when I had an issue, I'd turn on the bench grinder and either get something off the edge, like crunches off the edge, or file down a step fracture, or grind it down on the bench grinder. It works good, except the bench grinder is a little bit weird because it produces some vibrations that I don't know if it's particular to bench grinders, but I found it if I was using it on a thin piece, things would break off either the tip or the base as I was grinding it. It would ding. What's that? You know, why would it break as I was grinding? I think it's because two things. One, the grit was really coarse, and number two, it's just as you were grinding, sometimes it heats up, I think, and it was causing some issues with heat, and those are not good. They weaken the stone in certain areas, especially in thin areas like near the tip and the base. If you're grinding there, it'll heat it up and it cause some differences in heat, like heat treatment, and it'll weaken it. That's what I'm thinking. Anyway, I stopped doing that because I started reading about silicosis, and I'm going, you know, I'm probably going to get it to some extent, but I want to delay that as much as possible. And having a grinder right next to me while I'm napping is too tempting. I was starting to use it for everything. Instead of using an abrader around the edges, I'll just turn on the bench grinder and all the way around really fast. It only takes 5 seconds. Anyway, this is more natural because if I'm doing natural materials, this is what I would be doing with a hammerstone. Or a braiding stone. You can use a hammerstone to do this with, or you can just have a separate braiding stone. So if you get into the habit of doing it this way, it's good. I also used to have a concrete block that I would rub this on, because I used to, when the very beginning, when I was doing natural tool napping, I would have a big rock that I would rub my workpiece on. Instead of using an abrader, I just rub it on the big rock down there. Yeah. Anyways, that's back in the day. That's a long time ago. When I first started, I did all kinds of crazy stuff. I had a period of time where I was putting my workpieces in a vise and trying to nap it from while it was clamped in a vise, because I had trouble with the wobbling of the workpieces. It didn't work that great because there's nothing to stop you, and I cut myself pretty bad one day. I can't see it that much, but yeah, I cut myself. The worst I ever cut myself was actually on the back of my hand. It's just that happened like 12 years ago. That was very deep right there on the back of my hand because I slipped while it was clamped in a vise doing pressure flaking. Yeah. The other worst cut that I got was from reaching into a bucket of flakes. But I can't see that anymore. It's on one of my fingers, one of my middle fingers. Big old gash trying to fish out some flakes from a bucket. That used to be a common question when I first started napping. People would ask me, "You ever cut yourself real bad doing that?" I used to say, yes. I did cut myself really bad a couple of times. they don't ask that much anymore. I guess because there's a lot of guys that have videos on YouTube where they cut themselves. There's a lot of that now. They don't edit that part out. They used to edit out a lot of mistakes. At least when I first started watching napping videos, no one showed their mistakes. Now it's a common thing to see mistakes while napping. I started watching Flintknapping YouTube videos in 2007. That was a long time ago. Everyone was using big billets, big boppers, big hammerstones, big work pieces, big pressure flakers. Everything was big. And no one was doing the small points. Everyone was doing big points. A lot of Clovises and Paleos. Hardly any of the bird points. You couldn't find anyone doing a Harold point or a Toya point. Like those are from Texas. There was a few guys that did the Cahokia style and some of the California styles. That was about it. But you could find lots of guys doing Clovis points and the Cody style points. I think things have changed a lot. Okay, so should I do a bevel? It's 32 minutes. I'm going to break this up into a couple pieces, this video. I'll finish up on the next segment. Alrighty, that's it.